Part 22. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 211. Chapter 211. Silver is omnipotent. Jiaran smiled and nodded his sister's nose. Don't worry, my eldest brother is still going to take the first prize, and then I'll give you a chance to get married in glory. Jiyan hugged her eldest brother's neck and said coquettishly, No, 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 Fu Niu will stay at home. Okay, stay at home. If Fu Niu doesn't want to get married, just stay at home. Big brother will support you for the rest of your life. Jiaran smiled and patted his sister. He walked all the way to the entrance of the college and then reluctantly handed his sister to his grandma. The old lady asked, Our shop will open tomorrow, and Fu Niu and I can stay for one day. Don't worry about it and study hard. Jiaran then entered the academy with peace of mind. A student in his class saw the old lady and Jiyan from a distance, so he stepped forward and asked, Junior brother Li, is this a member of your family? Jiaran responded with a smile, Yes, my family didn't trust me, so they opened a small shop nearby. The student was a little surprised. The academy has a liberal style of study, and family background is rarely seen. Therefore, the family backgrounds of the students are uneven, including rich and poor families. Comparatively, there are still more small households from poor families. Jiaran saw that the food and supplies were just mediocre, but he didn't expect his family to have the strength and intention, so he actually opened a shop in the shopping street just to take care of it nearby. So he smiled and said, After reading the book, go back to the dormitory. Let's go together. I brought a lantern. Okay. Jiaran did not refuse his kindness, and they went to the school together laughing. On the way, he always felt a little nervous in his arms. When he reached out and touched it, he was startled. It turned out to be 250 taels of silver. Thinking about it carefully, he felt more complicated. My sister must have just snuck it in. He thought it was good to hide his thoughts, but he didn't expect to be discovered by this little girl. Actually, he regretted it when he entered the academy. It was not just as simple as practicing 12 bouquets a month. Eating, buying pens and ink, buying flutes, buying long swords, it can be said that everything costs money. I still have pen and ink for the time being, and I can choose the cheapest meal, or even eat 2 meals a day instead of 3. But the flute cost 2 taels, and the long sword cost 8 taels of silver. He wanted to regret not learning, but the teacher couldn't. When he came to study, his family brought him more than 5 taels of change. He spent more than 1 tael these days, and there was not enough left to buy a sword and flute. He has been feeling worried these past few days, and even wants to find a calligraphy and painting shop to get a job copying books, but water from afar cannot quench his thirst nearby. I don't want my family to suddenly come here to open a shop. I don't have to worry about food in the future, and I also have relatives around me, which is like having a backer. Now my sister has given me money to solve the problem of buying swords and flutes. Things that once embarrassed him were like icebergs that melted instantly when they encountered the sun. His heart felt sour and warm, and he took several deep breaths to suppress his choking. What reason does he have for not studying well? Ms. Li hugged her granddaughter and walked back. The smile disappeared from her face and she whispered to her granddaughter. Fu Niu, is your eldest brother too tired from studying? Although he only picked the good ones to talk about, I can see that this child is not doing well. What should I do? I can't ask him, for fear that he will be worried even more. Heavy. Jiyan thought about it for a while, then she leaned into her ear and said something. The old lady was stunned for a moment, then she raised her hand and patted her granddaughter gently. You girl, you use silver as candy balls, and you just give it away. Jiyan, however, smiled and acted coquettishly. Money is easy to use, give it to big brother can buy anything. The old lady sighed and finally kissed her granddaughter. Grandma is just confused. She didn't expect so much. Money is not easy to use. No matter what your brother has trouble with, money can solve it. Grandma is not old. Grandma has never read a book, so of course she doesn't know. Jian comforted the old lady, making her laugh. Okay, Grandma is not old. But remember, you can't do this again in the future. I will tell your third uncle that if your eldest brother wants to use silver, he can get it in the shop. I know. Jian jumped down and ran to the backyard first, for fear that her grandma would catch her and keep nagging her. On the second day, the family got up early. Li Laosan and Jie Huan went to the nearby market and bought a large strip of pork belly and some simple supplies. At 3 o'clock in the morning, a large bucket of mung bean porridge was cooked in the shop and placed under the eaves to cool. Zhao Yuru made 4 side dishes: spinach with nuts, cowpeas with garlic paste, stir-fried minced meat with salted cucumbers, and a radish with old vinegar. Jie Huan prepared 2 kinds of fillings, a vegetarian filling made of radish and dried shrimps, and a meat filling made of pork and cabbage. After the dough is ready, the whole family gathers together to make dumplings. Li Laosan placed a charcoal stove at the door of the shop. There was a small iron pot on the stove and 7 or 8 layers of small bamboo baskets. There are exactly 8 steamed dumplings placed in one basket, along with a bowl of porridge and 2 plates of side dishes, which is just enough to feed one person. Today a new shop opened. A basket of vegetarian dumplings sells for 10 cents, and a basket of meat dumplings sells for 15 cents. Mung bean porridge and side dishes are both given as gifts to build popularity. After 3 days, the mung bean porridge and side dishes will be counted as 5 cents, and the most expensive meal together is only 20 cents. I believe that students can afford it and it will be able to retain repeat customers. Finally waited until noon. The students had a lunch break. As soon as they came out of the gate, they were still foraging everywhere. Suddenly, I saw that the door of the most deserted food shop actually smelled delicious. The charcoal stove was steaming hot, and the white steamed dumplings were plump and piping hot. They looked really good. Someone was impatient to crowd with others, so he walked in. The students will feel more relieved when they see a new boss. Soon, the first batch of steamed dumplings were put on the table, and the second batch was also put on the charcoal stove. The students drank mung bean porridge to relieve the heat and took a bite of sweet, sour, or salty side dishes, and they all felt that their hot appetites were soothed. Eating steamed dumplings was also a pleasant surprise. The vegetarian dumplings were not as spicy as radish, but had a hint of sweetness. The meat dumplings are not greasy, and the refreshing taste of the cabbage is more obvious. Unknowingly, the porridge was all gone, the dumplings were gone, and all the side dishes were gone. It cost 10 or 15 cents per person, which was simply too cheap. Some people couldn't help but ask, "Boss, do you still sell dumplings here at night?" Li Laosan was in charge of greeting the guests at the front. He smiled and said, "Mister, we sell stir-fry set meals here at night. A bowl of rice plus 1 meat and 1 vegetable costs 15 cents. It's guaranteed to be full and delicious. The most expensive one, the set meal, consists of 2 meat and 2 vegetables, and it only costs 30 yuan. My chef learned the craft from the royal chef, so if it's not delicious, it's free of charge." The students were all interested in what they heard, and they all clamored to come and try it in the evening. Jiaran came a little late because he went to pay money to his husband. Originally, I was worried that the business of the shop would be poor, but unexpectedly, Uncle San was so busy that his forehead was sweating, so he stood at the door and laughed. Let's not talk about how busy the Li family is here, just say that in the courtyard of the Wang family in the south of the new capital city, after having lunch with his wife and children, Wang Yuanwei went to the study as usual. Wang Fu brought tea, stepped forward and whispered, "Master, the loyal uncle who served the old man earlier has been found." "Oh, Wang Yuanhui asked with a complex look in his eyes, is he in good health? Uncle Zhong is quite tough, but his family is not too worried. Wang Fu responded, his son became obsessed with gambling, owed more than 100 taels of gambling debt, and had his leg broken. Wang Yuanhui frowned, thought for a while and signaled Wang Fu to come forward, and whispered a few instructions. Wang Fu had surprise in his eyes and asked tentatively, Master, do you really want to do this? Wang Yuanhui nodded, you heard it right, redeem the note that Uncle Zhong's son signed in the casino. Then you personally take Uncle Zhong to the small courtyard in the west of the city. I want to ask some questions. The third update is here. Has the May Day holiday started for you guys? Rolling in envy, please give me a 5-star review and please update. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 212. Chapter 212. You help me solve my doubts, and I will help you solve your troubles. Wang Fu hesitated for a moment and then carefully suggested, Master, I heard that the people in the casino are very strict in collecting debts, and they will go to Uncle Zhong's house tomorrow to make trouble. Why don't you help Uncle Zhong pay off his debts first, so that whatever you ask can go smoothly? Wang Yuanhui raised his hand to pick up the tea bowl, but did not drink for a long time. At that time, he was seriously injured and had no memory. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Uncle Zhong. It was dark and there were no carriages or pedestrians, so Uncle Zhong carried him until dawn, and then he followed Mrs. Wang into the city and arrived at Wang's house. Over the years, he has remembered this friendship and taken great care of Uncle Zhong. Later on, Uncle Zhong took the initiative to complain about his old age, and the news was completely cut off. As long as he could retain some sense of friendship, he didn't want to hurt the old man, but there were some things for which he had to find answers. Okay, let's take him directly to the small courtyard in the west of the city tomorrow afternoon. Wang Fu nodded in agreement and retreated. At noon on the second day, after returning from Broken Gold Beach, the master and servant arrived at the small courtyard in the west of the city. This small courtyard was bought a few years ago and is in Wang Fu's name. The couple occasionally come here to stay. Wang Yuan has some personal matters outside his home, and he doesn't want the Wang family to know about them, so he will come here to deal with them. For example, he often comes here to drink medicinal soup. Recently, after Cat Brother has finished drinking the tonic, he can no longer boil the medicine at home, as it will be easy to be discovered. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw sister-in-law Wang sitting under the eaves of the veranda, doing needlework, and next to her there was an old man, in his 50s, with grey hair, thin body, with his eyes raised, and a sad look on his face. Perhaps something bad happened to him. The old man had a few bruises and redness on his face, and he was very embarrassed. As soon as Wang Yuan came in, the old man stood up in a hurry, rubbed his hands, and his expression was between 3 parts worried and 7 parts complicated. Sister-in-law, this old slave salutes you. The old man knelt down and was about to kowtow. Wang Yuanhui gave him a hand and said with a smile, Uncle Zhong, don't be polite. Sit down. Uncle Zhong saw that the king was sitting outside, so he dared to set up a stool and sit carefully. Wang Yuanhui looked at him for a few times, sighed and asked, Uncle Zhong, I haven't seen you for a few years, and you are much older? Is it because you are having a hard time? Uncle Zhong looked gloomy and responded in a low voice, there are unfilial sons in the family, and they will suffer in old age. Wang Yuanhui frowned and asked, when Uncle Zhong wanted to go back to enjoy his old age, I also gave him a lot of money. Has it all been lost in just a few years? Uncle Zhong's eyes were red. My wife is seriously ill, and I'm addicted to gambling. Even gold and silver can't keep up with spending money. Wang Yuanhui nodded and responded, I also heard a few words. People from the casino went to your house to cause trouble. Uncle Zhong subconsciously touched his calf. He almost got discounted today, but it was his wife who begged so hard that he was saved. He thought of his skinny wife and his son lying on the bed, and he knelt down and cried bitterly. "Uncle, please help me. I can't bear the debt collection anymore. Wow, our family can't live anymore. I beg my aunt to give me some money. I'll work hard to repay my great kindness." Wang Yuanwei bent down to help him up and patted his shoulder. "Uncle Zhong, don't cry. Everything that money can solve is a trivial matter. But I have a big matter here, and I need Uncle Zhong's help." "A big event?" Uncle Zhong was in a daze, feeling a little guilty for no reason. Wang Yuanwei raised his hand to pour him tea. "Back then, I was seriously injured. You and the old man didn't know each other, but you came to save me. That's how I am today. Otherwise, I would have died on the roadside long ago. There was no one. You know where my hometown is and who my last name is. Even if I am a ghost, I am still a lonely ghost." Uncle Zhong's expression changed when he heard this, and he shrank his neck. Wang Yuanwei glanced at him and asked, "Uncle Zhong, the old man said that you followed him out to discuss business, and got delayed because of something. You rushed home all night, and then you picked me up on the roadside. At that time, there was no little kid around me. Is there anything that can prove my identity?" Uncle Zhong was so frightened that his legs were weak and his back molars were chattering. It took all his strength to squeeze out a sentence. "Uncle, what happened back then has been too long, and I have forgotten it." "Really?" Wang Yuanwei responded calmly, playing with the jade pendant in his hand. "Uncle Zhong doesn't remember, or he doesn't dare to remember, or maybe remember, you don't dare to tell me." Uncle Zhong fell to his knees with a bang. He had no luck anymore. My uncle knew what happened back then, or he was suspicious of what happened back then. But when the old man was about to die, he swore a poisonous oath not to say a word. "Uncle Zhong, you should know that there is no airtight wall in this world. You are old and confused, but there are always people with good memories. If I heard about it from others, you would be useless," Wang Yuanwei said slowly. There was no coldness in his tone, but it made Uncle Zhong shiver even more. "Uncle, I promised the old man that I would never say a word until I die. I really don't know, I have completely forgotten about it." Uncle Zhong kowtowed heavily and tried to persuade. "Besides, my uncle has never been treated badly in all these years in the Wang family. Why do you bother to ask about that time?" A cold look flashed in Wang Yuanwei's eyes, and he responded, "The Wang family didn't treat me badly, but I didn't treat the Wang family badly either. Anyone with eyes should know what our family was like when the old man died and what it is like now. I'm not a stone. Those who jumped out also have parents to give birth to. If I stay here, my parents, have you ever thought about what will happen to my family?" Uncle Zhong's face was as white as paper. "Uncle, I don't want any more money. Please don't embarrass me. I can't say anything." After saying that, he kowtowed crazily, and soon blood started to flow from his forehead. Wang Yuanwei stared at him and took a deep breath. "Let's go whenever you change your mind, come back and say it. I promised you that I won't change. I'll help you solve your doubts. I'll help you solve your troubles." Uncle Zhong, as if he had received amnesty, got up and stumbled out. Wang Yuan looked out at the door of the courtyard, his eyes flickering, not knowing what he was thinking. Wang Fu and his wife looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. "Uncle Zhong will be back in less than 2 days. Because the master still cares about the friendship that he has had for many years and refuses to force me ruthlessly, but the thugs in the casino are ruthless." At dusk, in the Wang family's house, Wang Yi greeted the servants to prepare the dinner table. When she saw her husband coming back from outside, she smiled and said, "Master, why are you back so late today?" "I went out to see Zhuangzi today, but it was too late to start. There is no good place left," Wang Yuanwei responded while cleaning his hands. Wang Yi handed over a clean cloth and advised, "Then don't buy it. Why bother walking around outside all the time? I have nothing to do. I'm running around outside, but my headache is getting better. Wang Yuanwei put down his sleeves and saw his wife's changing face reflected in the basin. He sneered in his heart and said, I had a severe headache this morning. Now, my son is much better. Wang Yi breathed a sigh of relief quietly and said with a smile, then it's up to you. I don't understand what's going on outside. At this time, two children came in from outside. Brother Cat jumped directly into his father's arms and shouted, Dad, when will you take me to take a bath? I still want to play. Wang Yuanwei hugged his son and responded, the weather is so hot, you want to be steamed. Let's go again in the autumn. I heard that there are fruit trees planted in the valley. Then I will take you to pick fruits. Okay, Dad is the best. Brother Cat's sweet mouth made everyone laugh. The sun is about 3 o'clock in the sky, a rare moment of leisure in the hot spring valley, and all the guests who should come have already entered the valley. It was a little too early to make lunch at this time, and apart from the guests asking for some tea, there was nothing else to do. So, in the wooden house at the mouth of the valley, everyone found a shady place to sit, chat, and pick vegetables. Tao Hongying looked at the intersection from time to time, thinking about her mother-in-law and daughter. They originally thought they would come back after staying in Luoan for one night, but they didn't expect to stay there for 2 days and 2 nights. I don't know if my daughter will be uncomfortable at being so young, or will she cry. Aunt Wu Sanzi also knew that Mrs. Li went to the academy, and she was also concerned about her son becoming a bookboy. In the past 2 days, she took her son to school, learning how to cook simple meals, make beds, and fold quilts, and wash clothes. She was afraid that if the Li family regretted it again, their son would have no hope of future success. At this moment, Li Lao-san, driving a mule cart, suddenly appeared at the intersection. Tao Hongying happily threw down the vegetable basket and ran over. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 213. Chapter 213. It's too late to say anything. Everyone didn't know what happened, so they all ran in that direction. Suddenly, before the mule cart could stop, it was surrounded by people. Mother, Jiyan was already feeling sleepy due to the heat, but when she suddenly saw my mother, she rushed over to her. Tao Hongying hugged her heavy daughter, and seeing the old lady smiling, she finally felt at ease. Mom, why have you been gone for so long? If you don't come back, I will be looking for you. Mrs. Li got off the mule cart and said with a smile, if things go well, I will stay for one more day to help your third sister-in-law and the others. Before Tao Hongying could ask, no one saw Zhao Yuru and Jia Huan, so they asked, where did the third daughter-in-law go? Why didn't she come back? Yes, there is also Jia Huan. He is usually taciturn, but he is very quick at work. He has been away for the past 2 days, and it has been difficult for us to help Hongying. Mrs. Li didn't want to hide it from everyone. After all, they all lived in the same village and made a living together, so she couldn't hide it. She smiled and said, Jiaran's academy is too far away, and my family is worried that something might happen and I can't take care of it. It happens that there is a snack shop opposite the academy. In the future, I will let Lao San and his family go over and sell some steamed buns and dumplings to make a living. It is also convenient to take care of Jiaran. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then turned to envy and admiration. No wonder the Li family is living a good life. Mrs. Li, the head of the family, also has a very fast mind. They are still thankful that their lives are stable, and with some wages they buy meat to make dumplings, while others go directly to shop and do business. Auntie, you are really good at living. This is great, Jiaran is very happy. Old Mrs. Lee waved her hand, I just spoil my children too much, and I can't bear to let my children be helpless outside. Aunt Wusan felt extremely cold. The Lee family went to open a shop, so there was no need to send book boys to take care of Jiaran. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Lee took her hand and said, his third aunt, you go back and pack Go Shenger's luggage, and let Go Shenger go to the academy with Lao San later. Jiaran's academy is big and there is no one to help. It's really inconvenient. From now on, I will rely on Go Shenger to help Jiaran. This is really another village with a bright future and a bright future. Aunt Wu was so happy that she couldn't find the north. She responded repeatedly, okay, okay, I'll go back now, I'll go back right now. Mrs. Lee asked, from now on, Go Shenger will live and eat with Jiaran, and our family will give her an allowance of 200 yuan a month. Do you think that's okay? If you have nothing to do you think Go Shenger can live over there in the academy, for a few days? The backyard of my shop is very spacious. You can go out to the academy for lunch and dinner, which is convenient for meetings. Aunt Wusan almost turned her head on fire like a chicken pecking at the rice, okay, okay. With all the young men at home, they are all gritting their teeth in regret. How come they didn't know that Jiaran wanted to find a book boy? Otherwise, they would have asked the children at home to compete for him. That's an academy. I wish I had a dog that could recite poems. As long as you send your children in and learn some skills, it will be enough for them to settle down in the future. It's a pity that it's too late to say anything. Li Lao-san went home to pick up his luggage and supplies, and along the way he brought Uncle Wu and Aunt Wu who had come back after hearing the news. The couple were worried and wanted to send their son with them. The Li family is also happy. They will help drive the mule cart back when they come back tomorrow. After seeing them off, Mrs. Lee took her granddaughter on her back and walked around the house several times. She was relieved when she saw that everything was as usual. When Li Laozi and Li Lao heard the news, they came back to see their mother and Jiyan, chatted a few words, had dinner with the old lady, and then continued their work. The old lady was a little tired, so she hugged her granddaughter and took a nap. As a result, the good news didn't come back for a few days, and I was so excited that I couldn't sleep. I heard Grandma snoring, so I climbed off the Kong and ran out for a walk. Before leaving the gate, she met Mrs. Kui. Mrs. Kui had wanted to come over for a long time, but Lu's Haiheng's wife came to sit down in the morning and had just returned from lunch. Jiyan hugged Mrs. Kui's thigh and shouted happily, "Senior sister, senior aunt, Fu Niu misses you." Mrs. Kui felt sweet and hugged the little chubby girl, kissed her several times, and then asked, "You have been gone for a few days, and my aunt misses you too. Where is your grandma?" "Grandma is sleeping, Fu Niu can't sleep, so she's looking for her aunt to play." Jiyan put her arms around Mrs. Kui's neck, her smiling eyes narrowed into crescent moons, which was so cute. Mrs. Kui couldn't help but kissed her fat cheek again, turned around and gave instructions to sister-in-law Kyung. "You stay here and tell the old lady when she wakes up. Don't make her anxious." Sister-in-law Kyung responded, and Mrs. Kui took the good news and went out for a walk. The valley was so lively that Mrs. Kui was not used to it, so she simply carried Jiyan and walked to the fields. The weather was hot and the sun was shining brightly. After a while, the whole body was feeling hot and sweating. The village chief was sitting in a thatched shed in the melon field. When he saw it from a distance, he quickly took it over. "How did you come here on such a hot day?" Mrs. Kui also regretted it and said with a wry smile, "I just wanted to be quiet here, but I forgot about the sun." The village chief received the good news, handed the cattail leaf fan to Mrs. Kui to block the sun, and the three of them trotted into the shack. The shack is only built on two sides. It provides shade and ventilation, so it is a good place. The village chief smiled and said, "Madam, if you don't come, I have to find someone to invite you. The cold melons and cantaloupes in this field are all valuable things that Mr. Ye found. We have never eaten them. It's hard to grow them to this day. There are still some melons, but I don't know which ones are considered ripe. The good news was so exciting that I wanted to stick out my tongue, but after hearing these words, I immediately raised my head. Counting the days, it will be July soon. It is also the time when the watermelons and cantaloupes of the previous life are opened and sold in large quantities. Recently, my eldest brother and I went to the academy because of my uncle's acquaintance, and we are opening a shop. We are really busy, and we have neglected the melon field. She quickly jumped off the wooden bed covered with hay and ran to the melon field. The village chief and Mrs. were afraid that she would trip and fall, so they hurriedly followed behind. Fu Niu, run slowly, don't fall. Jian turned around and waved to them. It turned out that a field mouse was hiding under the melon vines, trying to eat the cantaloupe secretly. Jian grabbed a piece of trash and threw it over. Unfortunately, her little chubby hands didn't have much strength, so the trash missed it. Fortunately, the field mouse was also scared away. She ran over quickly and squatted next to the cantaloupe. This melon is a kind of melon that was often grown in my hometown in my previous life. It has a golden skin with light white stripes and looks very good. A cantaloupe is about the size of a woman's hand, oval in shape, and pleasing to the eye. The melon that was favored by the field mouse was darker in color, with a smooth skin and no burrs, a deep navel, and the base of the melon fell off when touched, so it was obviously ripe. Jian smiled and held it up to the village chief. The village chief looked left and right and figured out some experience. Is this melon ripe? It's easy to tell. He ran back to the shack, found water hyacinth, and cleaned the cantaloupe. Mrs. also quickly washed her hands of Jian. She was actually fighting for food with the field mice. It was really dirty. The village chief took a breath and smashed open the cantaloupe with his fist. An indescribable sweet smell spread out immediately. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 214. Chapter 214 Big Business is Coming. Mrs. had eaten cantaloupe. It was said that it was a tribute from foreign countries. At that time, her father, who was still a bachelor, had the trust of the emperor and received only 2 rewards. Her father brought it home very rarely and shared it with her. But the cantaloupe is white and green and small. The color in front of her was so much better. Before she could eat it, the sweet taste made her salivate. The village chief was also excited. With trembling hands, he divided a piece each between Jian and Mrs. and then couldn't wait to take a bite. He shed tears almost immediately. This is so delicious, sweet, so sweet. Mr. Ye is such a good man, he found such a fairy fruit for the village. Wow, this will definitely sell for a lot of money. Mrs. also nodded repeatedly, someone can buy melons like these for 1 tael of silver per caddy. They are much sweeter than the tributes I have eaten before. The good news was so good that melon seeds stuck to the tip of my nose, and I praised the nursery in the space. She just gave it a simple try and had no hope of succeeding. As a result, with such shriveled melon seeds, seedlings actually grew in the nursery. The most rare thing is that the quality of the cantaloupe has also improved a lot. After all, she ate the neighbor's cantaloupe in her previous life, and it was definitely not as sweet as the one in her hand. She looked at the large melon field in front of her, her eyes literally shining. This is not a melon field, this is a cornucopia. It was obvious that the village chief had the same idea. He wiped his face fiercely and shouted, "No, I want everyone in the village to come and see the melon field. No wonder I think there are more rats in the field recently. They are here to steal the melons. But no, you can't feed such a good thing to rats." Good news, however, is more concerned about another piece of cold melon. Logically speaking, cold melon matures several days earlier than cantaloupe. She stepped up her little fat legs and was about to run over, but unfortunately the melon vines blocked the way, causing her to trip and fall on her back. She could only look at the village chief and Mrs. Kui innocently and aggrievedly. The little fat girl, wearing a red summer shirt, was lying in the middle of the green melon vines. She looked so happy and funny, which made the village chief and Mrs. Kui bend over with laughter. Mrs. Kui stepped forward to hug her and said angrily, "Does it hurt from the fall? Your calves are so short and you still want to run anywhere. Eat cold melons are sweeter." Jiyan struggled into the cold melon field, and the village chief quickly led the way with his hands behind his back. "Let's take Funiu to see the cold melons. If she can find ripe cantaloupes, she will also be able to find ripe cold melons." Melon. Soon, we arrived at the cold melon field. There are not as many cold melons as cantaloupes, but each one is the size of a clay pot. It is not easy to hide them under the melon vines, and they can only be burned by the sun until they turn green and turn black. Jiyan was afraid of tripping, so she just crawled in the ditch. When she saw a big watermelon, she reached out and patted it. After passing 5 or 6 like this, she finally spotted one with a somewhat hollow voice. She was satisfied with it, so she raised her little face and shouted, "It's ripe. This one is ripe." The village chief stepped forward and kept taking pictures. He compared it with the cold melons next to him and got an idea. He took out a small dagger from his pocket, made a small triangular incision on hanga, and then poked out a piece of hanga. Under the black and green skin, there is actually a bright red melon pulp. A drop of light red watermelon juice drips, shining brightly when illuminated by the sun. The village chief swallowed hard, and with slightly trembling hands, he brought the cold melon to Jiyan's mouth. Jiyan was not polite and took one bite. He clapped his hands with joy and said, "It's so sweet and delicious." The village chief and Mrs. Kui both laughed, "As long as it's sweet, as long as it's sweet." Mrs. Kui pulled up her sleeves to block the sun from the good news, and said to the village chief, "Uncle, if people in our village pick such good things to sell in the city, I'm afraid they won't be able to sell them at a good price. Why don't I invite the sworn brother of the Lu family to come over? He has many connections, so it's best to sell them to wealthy families." Okay, this is great." The village chief was overjoyed. "Take this cold melon and give it to Mr. Lu to taste, and pick 2 cantaloupes as well. We must let people know whether the things are good or not before they can be given to us. Let's do some business." Mrs. Kui smiled and nodded repeatedly. The old lady slept until the sun set. She turned over and sat up. She didn't see her granddaughter on the Kong. She was startled and ran outside shouting, "Funiu, Funiu." Sister-in-law Kyung stood up under the eaves and responded, "Don't worry, old lady, our wife has hugged Funiu and went out to play." Old Mrs. Lee breathed a sigh of relief, and before she could say anything else, Mrs. Kui and the village chief came back with good news. Mrs. Lee quickly picked up her granddaughter and patted her. "I was really scared to death. I thought I was going to sleep, but I lost my granddaughter." Jiyan quickly pointed to the cold melon in the village chief's arms and offered it to Grandma. "Grandma, the melon is ripe, I picked it." "Oh, why did you go to the fields to harm the cold melons? These are precious things." Mrs. Lee nodded her granddaughter's nose, but the village chief smiled and said, "Funiu didn't waste anything. Funiu was very helpful today." Mrs. Kui also smiled and greeted sister-in-law Kyung, "Find a basket, send these cold melons and cantaloupes to the Lu family, and hand them over to my adopted brother. Tell my adopted brother that big business is coming." Sister-in-law Kyung was very happy to see her wife so lively, so she quickly got busy. Mrs. Lee asked, "Are the cold melons and cantaloupes ripe? Can they be sold for money?" "Yes," the village chief smiled with wrinkles on his face, almost dancing with joy. Not only is it ripe, it's also so sweet and delicious. Our village has become rich. Having said that, he didn't stay for a moment and ran directly to find someone to arrange and strengthen patrols. This time, let alone guarding against humans and wild beasts, not even a mouse can be spared. Old Mrs. Lee took Mrs. Kui to drink water under the eaves. After asking carefully, sister-in-law Kyan packed up and set off. I wonder if there are too many people moving to Jiangbei, and the new capital is so crowded that it seems to be hotter this year than in previous summers. Especially for a fat man like Lu Haiheng, it's really life-threatening. It was okay at night, but during the day I was sweating every time I moved, and I couldn't go out unless there was something urgent. Although the sun is setting in the west now, the earth that has been scorched by the sun all day is still like a steamer. Lu Haiheng was spread out on a bamboo chair, eating a bowl of ice cream, and two maids were fanning him, which made him feel better. Mrs. Lu couldn't help but scolded, "Master is really becoming more and more afraid of the heat. There are still 2 months in summer, so we can't do this every day." Lu Haiheng was also worried. Just when he was about to speak, the concierge from the front yard came to report the news. "Sir, the servant of the Kui family came to deliver something. She said that Mrs. Kui asked her to deliver it to you personally." Lu Haiheng and his wife were both surprised. After all, Mrs. Lu just came back from Broken Gold Beach in the morning. Lu Haiheng waved his hand and the concierge ran out. Soon sister-in-law Kyan came in carrying a basket. After saluting, she smiled and said, "Sir, our wife asked the servant to send you 2 good things, and also said that big business is coming." "Big business is coming?" Lu Haiheng and his wife looked at each other, even more confused. Until sister-in-law Kyan opened the basket and took out a cold melon that looked like a pottery basin, and 2 golden cantaloupes. Lu Haiheng was stunned for a long time, and then jumped down from the bamboo chair with a roar. "Where did this come from?" "Cold melon. This is cold melon." He almost rushed forward to hug the cold melon and refused to let go. Such a big cold melon is much better than the one sent by foreign vassals. This is the 3rd update. As usual, I ask for 5-star praise. Please urge me to update. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 215. Chapter 215, Offering to the Palace. "Master, be careful, don't move your waist," Mrs. Lu scolded, but she was also very curious about the cold melons and cantaloupes on the table. Lu Haiheng had a good relationship with his wife for many years. Now that he saw that his wife liked him, he called his servant to come over with a knife. The huge cold melon was cut in half, completely revealing the bright red flesh inside, as well as the black melon seeds embedded in it, which were clearly visible. He cut it into pieces with his own hands, then took a plate and sent it to his old father in the study room in the front yard. On the way, he called his children to the backyard to have something fresh. Mr. Lu was also surprised. "Where did the cold melon come from? It looks really good. I haven't heard of foreign feudal lords coming to pay tribute. Tianwu is now like a lost dog beaten by the barbarians. He lives here in the south of the Yangtze River and lingers. Not to mention paying tribute, it would be nice if other vassals do not come to the border to harass him." Lu Haiheng personally picked out the seeds from the cold melon before holding it in his hands to his old father. "Father, do you remember Broken Gold Beach? It's the village where Jinro lived. In addition to the hot spring valley, there is also a river beach. I heard that in the spring, the Marquis found some ways to find some melon vines and planted them. I didn't take it seriously, thinking I couldn't grow it, but today Jinro had someone send me these cold melons, as well as 2 golden cantaloupes, which looked very good." Mr. Lu took a bite of the cold melon, and his whole face softened. "This is really good stuff. It's true that no one has grown it before, but they are all small and taste bad, much worse than this. Everyone thought that Tianwu's land was not suitable for growing this kind of melon, but they didn't expect that it could be grown in a small place like Sujintan. Lu's Haiheng was so greedy that he reached out to pick up a piece and ate it up in a few bites. Dad, Jinro wants me to help sell all the cold melons and cantaloupes in Broken Gold Beach. Mrs. Lu nodded, please agree, this thing will definitely be in demand, and it will be good to make more connections for the family. In addition, send me dozens of the first batch of picks, and I will donate them to the palace. Lu's Haiheng quickly agreed. The emperor wanted to summon his father back to the court, but his father never agreed. However, he would occasionally come into the palace to talk to the emperor. Since the family wants to sell cold melons and cantaloupes, if they don't offer some to the emperor first, it will easily fall into disfavor. What's more, this cold melon is so good that it can't go wrong as a tribute. Soon, Lu's Haiheng returned to the backyard. Mrs. Lu and her children had already shared the cold melons and were looking at the two cantaloupes and laughing. Seeing this, Lu's Haiheng gave a cantaloupe to his wife and children. It tasted better than cold melon. Cold melon quenches thirst and is more suitable for men to enjoy eating. But cantaloupe is suitable for women. It has a strong flavor and is a bit sweeter than cold melon. He directly changed his clothes, said a few words, and hurriedly took people to Broken Gold Beach. Mrs. Kui was turning flower ropes with good news, and Mrs. Li was picking vegetables on the side. The three of them occasionally chatted, which was very lively. Originally, picking vegetables and cooking was Zhao Yuru's job. Now that the third child and his family have gone to Luoan, the old lady has taken over the cooking pot. After all, our son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren all have jobs and earn work points every day. We cannot let them come back after a tired day and have to prepare dinner again. But with a family of 7 or 8, including Uncle Zhao and a few other old men, it is not easy to make meals for more than a dozen people. Fortunately, sister-in-law Kayan will help Mrs. Kui when she stays here. When Mrs. Kui goes back to Zhuangzi, Dongmei and Yushin from next door will also help. The couple quietly guarded Mr. Yes' small yard, keeping silent on weekdays. Occasionally they only played with good news for a while, and never caused trouble. On the contrary, the old lady was afraid that they would be boring, so she often asked them to eat together and come over to chat. At this moment, sister-in-law Kayan came in from outside and reported with a smile. "Madam, the eldest man of the Lu family is here." He went directly to the melon field. The village chief and the second gentleman are accompanying him. I heard that he has to count how many cold melons there are in the field. This is a big deal. How many acres of cold melons can I count in such a short time? Mrs. Li smiled and asked sister-in-law Kayan, "Help me go to the valley and tell my fourth daughter-in-law that she should be fired. Bring some dishes back and entertain Mr. Lu in the evening." Sister-in-law Kayan responded and left. Jiyan was anxious to join in the fun, hugging Mrs. Kui's neck and shaking her. "Sister-in-law, go and count the cold melons." Mrs. Kui was so funny that she hit her on the head. "You don't know how to count, why are you joining in the fun?" But she said this and still stood up. "Auntie, I'll take Funiu for a walk." "Go, go, she is causing trouble at home." The old lady went into the house, found a special gauze hat, covered her granddaughter in gauze from head to toe, and then let them go out. Jiyan disliked the restraints of the gauze and twisted around to take it off, but Mrs. Kui pressed her little hand. "You forgot that a few days ago, you were bitten all over your body." Jiyan immediately became honest. A few days ago, when she came back from the valley with her grandma at night, she was chased and kissed by mosquitoes. If her brother hadn't rushed to the old miracle doctor to get some ointment, she wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. Even with such an easy-to-use ointment, she was itchy for 2 days before the red spots all over her body were removed. Mrs. Kui carried the good news all the way to the melon field, but she was also very tired. Li Lauer saw her and immediately took her niece over. "This girl is like a meat bun, getting more and more round and round, making it difficult for anyone to hold her. Luz Haihang saw his adopted sister coming over and his smile turned into a flower. Jinro, my father said he would pick some first and offer them to the palace. This is a great event. Mrs. Kui was also pleasantly surprised. She was afraid that the villagers would be reluctant to part with it, so she helped explain. After being presented to the palace, the cold melons and cantaloupes here will become tributes. Everyone will fight for them, so there will be no worries. Sell. Li Laoer, the village chief, and the nearby villagers were all very excited. Actually, it doesn't matter whether the money is sold or not. The emperor is most proud when he eats the cold melons they planted. The village chief even said, because some county magistrate's son came to seize the land, Mr. Wen even took us to file a complaint. I also met with the emperor and received the japonica rice as a reward from the emperor. Now we have a firm foothold. Han, there is a good harvest of melons, so it's appropriate to give some to the emperor to try. This reminded Luz Haiheng, then we should inform junior brother Wen. It is best for him and my father to follow you into the palace. As he spoke, he called Chang Sui to rush back to the city. At this moment, it is already dusk. If we don't hurry up, the city gate will be closed. Soon, everyone reported a rough number. Luz Haiheng had some thoughts and went back to Li's house with everyone. Tao Hongying and a woman helped bring back 2 large food boxes, plus the rice steamed by Mrs. Li, a large plate of washed vegetables, and a large bowl of fried egg sauce, and dinner was put on the table. The village chief, Uncle Zhao and Dr. Zhang all came to accompany the guests. After they had eaten and drank enough, they started talking about business. Luz Haiheng got straight to the point. After these cold melons and cantaloupe are sent to the palace, the emperor will separate them to reward important ministers and dignitaries. When the reputation spreads, we can sell them. I am not going to sell them by the pound, such a good thing is it can't be like ordinary fruit. This time, let's sell it individually. Sell it individually. Everyone understood it, no wonder they went to the fields to count just now. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 216. Chapter 216, Amazement. The village chief thought for a moment, suppressed the pounding in his heart, and said, Mr. Liu, since we have trusted you, we will let you arrange these things. But there is one thing I want to say. Okay, village chief, please tell me. Luz Haiheng nodded, guessing that it was about the price. Sure enough, the village chief said, as for the price of cold melons and cantaloupes, although we have been growing them for more than half a year and have suffered a lot, we don't want to sell them too expensive. In other words, we are willing to sell these cold melons at a reasonable price. We will sell melons and melons to you. As for the price after you take them away, we won't be jealous even if one cold melon sells for an ingot of gold. This is so unexpected for Luz Haiheng. Everyone hopes to get rich overnight and reach the sky in one step. But why did the people at Broken Gold Beach push out the gold they got? This, village chief, things are rare and expensive. It is very easy to sell these cold melons and cantaloupes at sky-high prices. If you push them out like this, you will lose a lot of money. The village chief smiled and shook his head. Others don't know it, but we know it ourselves. We are just a bunch of mud-legged people who luckily escaped here to survive. We have been jealous of the Hot Spring Valley, and have caused trouble to both Mr. Wen and the Marquis. Now that these cold melons and cantaloupes are selling for sky-high prices, I'm afraid the troubles will continue again. The Marquis is away fighting, and Mr. Wen has just entered the court. We don't want to trouble them anymore. Money is easy to use, but there must be some if you have a good life, you can spend it well. Li Lauer also echoed, young children walk in the busy city with gold in their hands. Most of them can't keep the gold, and may even endanger their lives. We are ordinary people, we only want a stable and prosperous life, and we don't want to be regarded as attractive fat by everyone. Always ready for a bite. Previously, after sending cold melons to the Liu family, the village chief discussed it with Li Lauer, Liu's chief Li Laosi and other captains. Silver is a good thing, but the village has no ability to protect itself for the time being, so it mostly relies on the Marquis, Mr. Wen, and Mrs. Kui. If you are too greedy, you will eventually cause disaster and harm others and yourself. It would be better to just take what they deserve and feel more at ease. The village chief added, so, for the cold melons and cantaloupes in our fields, excluding those that are brought to the palace as tribute, we will simply set a price and give half of them to Mr. Liu to sell. Even if they are sold for gold and silver, we will only take our share of the mountain, and the other half will be left in the fields to feed the other side of the valley to add to the excitement. Liu's Haiheng didn't speak for a long time, feeling very complicated in his heart. At first, he just thought that the people in Sujintan were simple and kind-hearted. His adopted sister lived here and could at most supplement some food and supplies. It was just a place to relax and stay, which was safe and secure. Now I realize that he is still shallow. These people may not have read many books, but they are rare, sober and sensible. Only take what you deserve, without being greedy or arrogant. This is easy to say but the most difficult thing to do. He stood up and solemnly saluted the village chief, Li Lauer and others. Liu learned a lesson today, thank you very much. The village chief and others hurriedly helped him and said with a smile, we are just timid and don't dare to cause trouble. We don't know any great principles or teachings. Li Lauer also said, in addition, if these cold melons and cantaloupe are sold, many people will try to plant them next year. Our village is not going to hide it. Anyone who asks about the planting methods will teach them a few words. If Liu the master has riverbank land at home, so I can plant a few acres of it. Liu's Haiheng thought for a while and nodded, it's really hard to control the seeds of these cold melons and cantaloupe melons when they are sold. Everyone wants to try them. If you don't teach me, it's really easy to make enemies. Well, I'll plant a few acres at home, too. At that time, I will have to bother the village to send someone to give some guidance occasionally. Yes, it's a small matter, the village chief agreed immediately. Even if the matter is settled now, I feel happy when I hear the good news from beginning to end. She was originally worried that the villagers would be stunned by the sudden wealth, but she did not expect that the village chief and her second uncle were sober as ever. This is like a big piece of cake that everyone wants to take a bite of. Rather than clinging to it and being coveted by others through various schemes, it is better to take the initiative to part with it. In this way, a larger piece can be left, which can be held safely. Of course, everyone feels sorry for the part that was separated, but in the final analysis, Broken Gold Beach is still too weak, and stability and development are the first priority. That night, Liu's Haiheng stayed at Li's house, and the third room happened to be moved to Luoan. The room was free, which was convenient for living. Mr. Wen rushed over early the next morning. He and Liu's Haiheng discussed it and decided to donate 50 cold melons and 100 cantaloupes. This number is not too much, but it is not much. The villagers rushed to Dawaisha village and bought a lot of small baskets. Each small basket contained a cold melon or 10 cantaloupes, which looked much neater and more delicate. While picking melons, the village chief specially carried good news to the melon field. Although he followed the instructions yesterday, he was still afraid of picking the wrong thing for such a precious thing. Jiyan was running around in the field, and wherever his little finger touched, the village chief would lead people to pick it. Liu's Haiheng was surprised and asked Mrs. Kui, is this little girl from the Li family only 2 years old? Isn't she a little too? Mrs. Kui grew up watching Jiyan, so she didn't find it strange, so she smiled and said, Fu Niu is smarter than ordinary children, and she is naturally greedy, so she is superior to ordinary people in this regard. Yesterday, she also won the first prize from the field mouse. A cantaloupe is not only ripe, but also extremely sweet. Luz Haiheng was astonished that Broken Gold Beach was really a geomantic treasure land, because everything was so unusual. Hands can be dug out of barren mountains to create hot springs. Cold melons and cantaloupes were grown in the worst riverbank land. Even the little baby we raised is so smart. Soon, the cold melons and cantaloupes were picked. A villager wanted to wash the soil off the cold melons and cantaloupe, but Luz Haiheng stopped him. Don't wash it. It's not easy to store it after washing. It will look fresh this way. Just put the clean ones on top and put some more melons in the basket. Seedling. Everyone nodded and worked hard, and finally put the cold melons and cantaloupes on the carriage. The village chief and Li Lao changed into clean clothes, and followed Luz Haiheng and Mr. Wen into the palace to offer melons, feeling half uneasy and half excited. The villagers have been thinking about it all day long. When working, they always look at the intersection. All the old people and children in the village, as long as they had no important work in their hands, were scattered in the melon fields. No outsiders are allowed to approach, and small animals and field mice are also killed when they see them, and no one is spared. At dusk, the carriage finally came back. The village chief and Li Lao were both so happy that they walked as if they had stepped on cotton. The villagers surrounded them, asking all kinds of questions. What's going on? Did the emperor eat our cold melon? Mr. Wen was afraid that the village chief and others would not understand, so he smiled and said, the emperor not only ate it, but was also very happy. He said that we are good people of Tianwu, we have built a new home, and we have grown such good fruits. The emperor gave the cold melon the name Jasper, and the sweet melon the name Golden Fruit. Luz Haiheng then said, it doesn't matter that the emperor didn't reward you with anything. Just these two names are important treasures. From now on, the Tianwu family will grow cold melons and cantaloupes, and your Broken Golden Beach ones will also be the best ones. Don't worry about selling them, and it's definitely a high price. The villagers were overjoyed when they heard this. They all knelt down in the direction of Zindu and shouted, Long live! Long live the emperor! Thank you, your majesty. Jasper melon, golden fruit, the emperor is really good at naming. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 217. Chapter 217, Rise to Fame. After all, for ordinary people, kowtows and thanksgiving are messy, but they are definitely sincere. The good news is in the arms of Mrs. Li, and she is so happy that she runs straight up. These two names are the best talismans. Even if outsiders are jealous and want to rob it, they don't dare to come openly. Obviously, Mr. Lu and Mr. Wen understand this truth better and plan to make full use of it. So, after returning to Li's house and sitting down, the two people discussed with the villagers and set the price of cold melons at 3 taels of silver each and musk melons at 500 cents each. The price is not particularly high, but it is definitely not low either. The villagers' hands trembled with excitement when they thought about the large melon vines on the riverbank. How much silver will this cost? 1 cold melon is worth 1 month's wages. The village chief banged the pipe pot and shouted to everyone. Please wake up, don't be knocked unconscious by the money. We are here today. First, we are lucky to have found a good place like Broken Gold Beach. Second, the Marquis sent people to find such precious melons. Third, we are here today. It was Mr. Lu and Mr. Wen who helped deliver it to the emperor and received the name. Otherwise, once the news spreads, I'm afraid the melon fields will be trampled immediately, and no one of us will be left alive. So, please keep your hearts to yourself and don't let me hear the nonsense in anyone's mouth. I know, uncle, don't worry, we understand, the villagers responded quickly. The village chief nodded and said, "The wild geese need to be beaten back first, and then we can decide whether to roast or stew them, and how many pieces each person will share. Now I have stabilized everything, in case the wild geese scare away, you guys, there is no place to cry." He turned to Li Lao Si and asked, "Lao Si, are you going to see Mr. Ye these days?" "Yes, uncle, we made some food at home and thought about sending it to Mr. Ye," Li Lao Si responded. The village chief told him, "Before you leave, go to the fields to pick cold melons and cantaloupes. It doesn't matter if others don't eat them, but Mr. Ye must try them. It's because of Mr. Ye that we are where we are today." Old Mrs. Li shook her cattail leaf fan to drive away mosquitoes for her granddaughter. She also said, "This matter has been delayed for almost half a month. Why don't we pick melons tomorrow night and leave early the next morning?" Mrs. Kui sat next to her and said, "I've been in the village these days. Why not let the fourth child drive my family's carriage? It's faster on the road." "Okay, I won't be polite to you anymore. When the cold melon is sold for money, we will also add a carriage to our family." Old Mrs. Li was also happy. Everyone likes money. If nothing else, at least I don't have to worry about providing for my eldest grandson to study in the future, and everything that is missing can be added. The people in the village were also smiling from ear to ear, thinking about how to spend the money allocated to their families. The more they thought about it, the happier they became. There is never a shortage of well-informed people in the world. When the emperor received 2 good fruits, he rewarded them to several important ministers and relatives of the emperor. The next day, the whole of Zindu knew about it. Some people say that jade melons and golden fruits are in the sky and on the earth, while others are skeptical. But when asked about the people who had received the reward, all of them were full of praise. This is a good way to relieve the heat. It is much better than what is sent from foreign vassals. Everyone can't help but be curious, so they try their best to find out more. Soon, because it was Mrs. Lu who brought the people to pay tribute with melons and fruits, someone started to inquire about Lu's Haiheng. Lu's Haiheng was also unceremonious. Jade melons cost 5 taels of silver each, and gold fruits cost 1 tael of silver. Those who wanted to buy had to book in advance, and the quantity was small, so each person could not buy too much. Things are rare and valuable, so jade melons and golden fruits were quickly snatched up and sought after. There are also smart people who have found the broken gold beach and want to buy some from the village. But the villagers made it clear that the jade melons and golden fruits were given to Lu's Haiheng for sale, and the village only provided additional supplies to the hot spring valley. Guests who come to the hot springs can also pick and eat the food freshly, ensuring freshness. On the other side of the hot spring valley, it has been boiling for a long time. The guests all wanted to taste the fruits that the emperor praised personally, and the boys were busy going crazy. 1 cantaloupe is divided into 5 pieces, 100 cents each, and 1 jasper melon is divided into 30 pieces, 100 cents each. In this way, both individual guests and distinguished guests who have booked a wooden house and courtyard can have a taste of something new. If you want to take it away, it's not impossible. Purchase is limited. A small courtyard can take away 2 jade melons and 4 golden fruits. The number of guests in the cabins has been reduced by half, and individual guests can only eat in the valley and cannot take away. Some people complained about being stingy and wanted to buy more, but they shut up after hearing the prices in the city. There are also people who have carefully planned a yard in the hot spring valley, and then bring back jade melons and cantaloupes to sell them at a high price or give them as gifts. As for the nearby Dawaisha village, Xiaowang village and Dawang village, men, women, old and young, heard that such a good thing came out of Sujintan, and they started talking about it. Most people were envious, and the rest were jealous, but because Broken Gold Beach was the Marquis's property, and the new fruits were named after the emperor, everyone only dared to say a few words and did not dare to act rashly. Until, the 2 Li Zhengs received an invitation to taste the freshness of the melon fields in Rujintan, and brought back the latest news. Don't be jealous, the cold melons and cantaloupes grown in Sujintan are said to be high in price. In fact, the vendors have raised the prices. Sujintan didn't get much at all, which is just hard-earned money. Sure enough, the villagers felt much more balanced after hearing this. Don't worry about fewness, but worry about unevenness. They are just dirt-legged people digging in the soil. Why should they grow golden nuts and barely have enough to eat? But some people said, then they must not understand the market and have suffered a loss. If they continue to sell at high prices next year, they can still make a fortune. Li Zheng, however, waved his hand and said with a smile, the broken gold beach is very generous. I will teach you all to grow cold melons and cantaloupes next year. I have saved the seeds for you all. There are not many, but we can plant a few acres in our village. Seriously? Haha, we are going to get rich too. The villagers were completely happy, and everyone changed their tune without exception. This group of people from Rujintan are really good, they are not stingy. Yeah, such a good thing, but I don't have any secrets. There are also smart people who are more sober. I may not make money next year. There will definitely be more people planting. That should be more cost-effective than growing crops, others retorted. For a time, the melon fields in Broken Gold Beach were very lively inside and outside Kyoto. Up and down Broken Gold Beach, it was like facing a formidable enemy, and most of the people's hands were placed in the melon fields. Fortunately, this season is slack, and there is not much work in the crop fields. Let's not talk about the commotion here at Sujintan. It's just that Li Laosi drove a carriage, took Ji Yi and Lu Yang, and Yeshan together to rush to the dock. Logically speaking, Ji Yi and Lu Yang should stay at home to help, but they are young and playful, and it is the time when they need to gain more experience, so the family agreed that they should go with them. The emperor moved the capital to Jiangnan. Although it was in a hurry, 1 year has passed and things are much better now. The road from Zhongbian Pier to Kyoto is well built, and the carriage is less bumpy when running up it. But because the meat sauce, cold melon, and cantaloupe prepared by the Li family are all fragile, no one dared to walk too fast along the way. At night, we even found a place at the foot of a barren mountain, rested for most of the night, and then arrived at the border guard camp at the dock at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeshan took the Marquis' token and went with Li Laosi to deal with the soldiers guarding the camp gate. The soldiers guarding the camp gate were very strict and did not ask for the copper coins that Li Laosi pushed over, so they went in to report. After waiting for a long time, a deputy general came out. Li Laosi looked familiar, and when he thought about it carefully, it seemed that he was a captain who took good care of them when they first arrived at the dock. Now he has been promoted and is now with the Marquis. The deputy general also recognized Li Laosi obviously, and had met Yeshan before. Now he hurriedly stepped forward to salute and said with a smile, the Marquis was talking about home yesterday, but today there are distinguished guests. Li Laosi was also happy. Just when he was about to repay the courtesy and speak, he suddenly ran up on horseback. The soldiers on the horse jumped down and shouted loudly. The Marquis has orders to dispatch 500 reinforcements, hurry up. Dear treasures, it's updated, the third update. Huahua is so pitiful on Labor Day when we can't take a day off. I beg for 5 stars and reminders. Keep up the hard work. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 218. Chapter 218. Chapter 218 is open to meet. The lieutenant general immediately turned around and ordered his soldiers to ignite 500 men and horses and prepare to set off. Master Li, please wait for a moment. There is a war over there with the Marquis. I will go to pick up the Marquis right away. Ji Yi and Lu Yang were young men who were at an age where they were not afraid of anything, and they had their own abilities. At this time, they couldn't help but get into trouble. The two of them grabbed Li Laosi's arm and said, Uncle, let's go take a look too, okay? How could Li Laozi not understand their thoughts? To be honest, he felt itchy in his heart. After hesitating for a while, he finally said, "General, can you prepare 3 horses and 3 swords for us, and we will go to greet the Marquis." "General, don't worry, we have all killed barbarians, and we will not be a drag on everyone." The general did not wait for a response. Ji was afraid that he would not agree, so he turned his head and raised the carriage a foot high. The deputy general stared in shock. You must know that the fully loaded carriage weighed 300 kilograms, and it was just lifted up by a boy and a half. Looking at this boy, his face was not red, and his heart was not beating. "Okay, follow me closely on the road. If you are injured, I can't explain it to the Marquis." The deputy general responded, which made Li Laozi and the 2 boys extremely happy. Soon, 3 horses and 3 long knives were brought over. Li Laozi and 2 boys got on their horses and ran away with the team. At first, Li Laozi and the 2 boys were a little uncomfortable with riding on the horse. After all, they usually rode mules, which was a little different from riding horses. But the 3 of them adapted quickly, ran all the way to the pier, got on the boat, and rushed to the other side quickly. Yashan guarded the carriage and saw the large group of people running away. He was worried and amused at the same time. He, a serious marquis, accompanied him personally, but instead became the coachman who watched the carriage. Li Laozi and the others don't care about this, or they don't have the heart to care about it. As soon as they got off the boat, everyone started galloping and quickly reached the place where the battle took place. There were more than 300 barbarians, and the border guards numbered 400 to 500. It can be said that they were evenly matched. However, the border guards had the upper hand because the Marquis was brave and kept charging ahead, which boosted their morale. The barbarians did not expect the reinforcements from the border guards to arrive so quickly, so they retreated in a hurry. As a result, they were quickly picked up by the reinforcements and made dumplings. Li Laozi was born with supernatural powers. Even if he faced tough barbarians and slashed them with his sword, no one could resist them. Ji Yi and Lu Yang were quite cautious. They took care of each other. When they saw barbarians, they would usually fight one by one. Therefore, they were not injured and instead killed 2 barbarians. The deputy general looked at him from a distance and breathed a sigh of relief. When he found an opportunity, when he got to the Marquis, he loudly reported, "Master Ho, people from Yeshan and the Li family are here to bring you something. I heard that you want reinforcements, so forth Master Li brought 2 boys over to help." Mr. Ye finished killing the barbarians in front of him. He turned around and saw that Li Laozi and Ji Yi Lu Yang were both there. The 3 of them were inseparable from the barbarians and had no intention of paying attention to him. He was a little funny. Normally, the Li family's aunt was worried about their safety and wouldn't allow them to leave home. But now that she came here to catch up with the war, she actually let them eat meat. Thinking like this, he slowly moved closer and looked after them on one side, for fear that they would be injured in an accident. Soon, most of the barbarians were killed. Seeing that something was going wrong, the remaining half fled desperately, leaving behind more than a dozen corpses. Don't chase the enemy if you are poor, let alone here in Jiangbei. Mr. Ye also ordered the troops to be withdrawn, quickly swept the battlefield, then carried the injured soldiers onto the boat and returned to the south bank. The wounded soldiers were carried down for treatment. Mr. Ye led everyone into his tent, and then he took the time to talk to Li Laozi, "Fourth brother, why are you here? How are you at home?" Li Laozi was very happy and a little scared when he heard Mr. Ye call him this. Generally speaking, young Master Ye always calls me aunt, and his daughter calls her uncle all the time. To be honest, the family does treat young Master Ye as one family. But Mr. Ye's identity is too noble. No one dares to really regard him as a brother. But Mr. Ye didn't care about this and called him that in private. Li Laozi was a forthright person after all. He didn't hesitate for too long and answered directly. Don't worry, Mr. Ho, everything at home is fine. My mother has been thinking about you a few days ago and asked Hong Ying to cook a lot of food, thinking of sending it to you. But there are things at home that have been delayed. The cold melons were dragged to the field. The cantaloupes were ripe, so we just picked some and sent them over. Have the cold melons and cantaloupes ripened so quickly? It's only been 3 months since they were planted, right? Mr. Ye was also happy and asked, are they available for sale? These are precious things. I didn't see many of them when I was in Kyoto. I definitely don't want them. It's sold cheaply. Mrs. Kui helped find the eldest man of the Lu family to be responsible for the sales. In addition, the old man of the Lu family and Mr. Wen also brought the village chief and second brother to the palace to make a donation. The emperor rewarded the name, and now that it is famous, everyone is rushing to grab it. I want to buy it. But the family is afraid of attracting jealousy. As long as we pay a similar price, the rest will be given to the Lu family. We can't let people's work go to waste. What Li Laozi said was serious. Mr. Ye kept nodding his head. He really wanted to talk for a while, but he had just gone through a war and there were always things to arrange. He then said, you guys have a rest first, I'll go to the wounded barracks to have a look and I'll be back soon. Master Marquis, let's go and wash up. We smell of blood. If someone in the family smells it, don't think about it in the future. Li Laozi immediately agreed, and then pulled the excited Ji Yi and Lu Yang, follow the bodyguard to take a shower. When he came back, Mr. Ye had not finished handling his official duties. They ordered 2 small stoves and cooked lunch in front of Mr. Ye's tent. Put water in a pot, boil dry noodles, add cold water, put it into a bowl, add the meat sauce brought from home, add some cucumber shreds and coriander, mix it up. It is very hungry and refreshing, perfect for this summer. Hold a jar of meat, pour half of it into the pot, and add a few handfuls of green beans. There is no need to add any other seasonings. After the stew is done, sprinkle a handful of chopped green onions and serve. The brown red meat was already cooked, and after being stewed for so long, it was completely soft. When I carefully picked up a piece, it trembled on the tips of the chopsticks, as if it was about to break at any moment. There are also beans wrapped in soup, which are shiny and oily, making people salivate after just one look. Not to mention the Marquis soldiers guarding the tent, even the patrolling soldiers passing by couldn't help but stretch their necks to take a few more glances, and stretch their noses to take a few more whiffs of the aroma. Mr. Ye came back from outside and saw that Li Laozi had received Ji Yi and Lu Yang was busy, so he couldn't help but slow down. He is a marquis and a cousin of the emperor. Naturally, he is rich and luxurious. He wears silks and satins and eats delicacies from the mountains and seas. There are countless people who want to win over him and please him. But it is definitely not unreasonable for him to fall in love with the Li family. The Li family sewed the clothes for him because they were really worried that he would be cold and tried their best to keep him warm. The Li family provided food for him because they really wanted him to be well fed. The Li family cares about him and really hopes that he will be safe. What is rare is this unadulterated sincerity, which is more precious than anything in the world. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 219. Chapter 219. An inexplicable sense of superiority. Li Laozi shouted to his nephew to bring the casserole into the tent. When he raised his head and saw Mr. Ye coming back, he shouted, "Master Marquis, it's time to eat, I'm waiting for you." "Coming, Mr. Ye responded with a smile, stepped forward and followed him into the tent. Ji Yi and Lu Yang have been working hard all morning and are really hungry now. The clay bowl that was bigger than the face was filled with noodles, and 2 spoons of meat sauce were added. Neither of them had time to add the vegetables. They held it in their hands and ate it in a few mouthfuls. They seemed to just gulp down the noodles without chewing them at all and without opening their throats. With me being poor, Li Laozi has a headache. I'm afraid the food prepared for Mr. Ye is not enough for them. So, he asked Mr. Ye, Master Ho, these 2 boys often say they want to be soldiers. Why don't they be taken to the cook camp to have a big pot meal and experience the life of the military camp thoroughly? Before Mr. Ye could refuse, Ji Yi and Lu Yang jumped up excitedly, okay, we are willing. Mr. Ye had no choice but to call his own soldiers and take them down. Li Laozi quickly picked out the meat from the altar and gave it all to Mr. Ye. Master Ho, please eat more and take good supplements. When we went out, Fu Niu kept telling me to take a good look at you to see if you have lost weight. This little girl is almost treating you as her biological father. You should eat more quickly, otherwise the little girl will definitely feel distressed when she goes back. Mr. Ye couldn't help but laugh. He was obviously a jealous father. He led the troops and always took the lead, so he rarely opened a small stove in the military camp on weekdays. He would eat whatever the soldiers ate. Now that he was eating the familiar taste of the food at home, he also had a great appetite. 2 bowls of noodles and half a pot of meat stewed with beans made him unable to sit still before he put down his chopsticks. Seeing this, Li Laozi and Yeshan divided the remaining food, even pouring the vegetable soup into the noodles and ate them together. After dinner, young Master Ye took Li Laozi out for a walk to eat. Li Laozi took him to look at the things he had brought home, and told him one by one. Finally, he opened the basket and showed it off like a treasure. Look, these are the cold melons and cantaloupes at home. The emperor gave them the names of jade melons and golden fruits. Fu Niu picked these with her own hands. This girl is greedy. She has never seen what cold melons look like, but she actually knows how to pick them raw and cooked. Pick the right one and never miss it. Mr. Ye glanced at Li Laozi, who was full of pride, and coughed twice. This father probably doesn't know how miraculous his daughter is. Not to mention the raw and cooked cold melons, even the cold melon seedlings were found by his daughter. This matter is only known to his uncle, and it is also a secret between him and the little girl. So, in the little girl's heart, he is more trustworthy than her own father. Mr. Ye suddenly felt a sense of superiority in his heart. The corners of his mouth were raised and could not be lowered. As he was talking, a soldier brought a few ragged people over to kowtow and thank him. It turns out that the battle with the barbarians just now was to save these people back. Mr. Ye asked a few questions and then asked people to take them down to settle down. Li Laozi frowned and asked, Master Ho, are all these people coming over the mountains? Mr. Ye nodded, the barbarians are rampant. In order to escape, many people went into the mountains. They saved their lives first, and then slowly climbed over the mountains to the dock to seek help. Li Laozi thought of the books left in the cave and said, you and I are here too. I want to go into the mountain to get something. What is it? I will send someone to get it for you, Mr. Ye asked. Li Laozi shook his head, recounted what had happened before, and added, although the Guo family's behavior makes people unhappy, it would be a pity to leave those books in the mountains. Besides, Jiren can also use them after he enters the academy. Mr. Ye thought for a while and said, I will send someone to go back to Kyoto quickly and ask Mr. Wen to ask Chief Guo. If he agrees to make a copy at home, then go to the mountain to get the book. If he doesn't agree, there will be no it is necessary to take risks. Li Laozi also thought this was the best. Immediately, Mr. Ye called Yeshan and 2 soldiers to go to Zindu and send a message to the Li family. The Guo family now only has a semi-paralyzed old man and an ignorant child, so it is impossible not to agree. Because they refused, these books could only be thrown in the mountains, and the Guo family had no ability to retrieve them. Sure enough, Mr. Wen was happy to see Yeshan and learn about his purpose, and quickly went to Guo's Zhuangzi. Guo Shan has always been bad at walking, and now he can't go out for a walk. He has lost contact with all his old friends. What he fears most is that one day he will die and his grandson will be left alone. Mr. Wen came to the door and said that he wanted to take out the collection of books in the mountain. The price was only to make a copy for the Li family. He was overjoyed. With these collections of books, he can make arrangements for his little grandson's future. The two soldiers returned to report the news, and Yeshan personally went back to Sujintan. The Li family were worried when they heard that Li Laozi was going to the mountains to pick up books. However, if the general's military orders abroad are not met, they don't agree and have nothing to do. What's more, with the copies of those books, my family can barely look like a scholar. At least arrange a study room for Grn, bring a classmate or friend, and have shelves full of books. Old Mrs. Li could only say, let him go. As long as Mr. Ye is here, he will also arrange for help. But Lu Yang is not our child, so please tell Lu Biao first. Lu Biao and his wife were quickly found. After listening to the story, they were not worried at all. Both Laozi and Ji Yi are capable, and they have Mr. Ye to help them. They are familiar with the mountain roads before, so I am worried about what he will do. They are also naughty at home, so it is best to go and do something serious. There is no need for everyone in the Li family to worry. Besides, over at Luoan Academy, Grn didn't know that his fourth uncle had already plunged into the vast mountains in order to get books for him. During this period, he has completely adapted to life in the academy. During the day, Go Shenger is always helping him when running errands. Although Go Shenger is clumsy and often makes jokes, he doesn't feel lonely anymore when he has a companion. After leaving the academy, my 3 uncles, 3 aunts, and my younger brother were opening a shop. The business of the shop was also booming, so much so that everyone in the academy got to know him because of the food shop. It was enough to pay it off at noon. In the evening, he and Go Shenger would go to the shop to help whenever they had free time. The students all like to eat the set meals in the shop. The food tastes good, comes in many varieties, and is clean. Almost as soon as the college is over, there is a long queue in front of the shop. There is no room to sit in, so some people go back to the college to eat. Today, students in the same dormitory celebrated their birthdays, and Grn invited several close classmates to have dinner in the backyard of the shop. Li Laosan was happy that his nephew had a good friend, so he got up early in the morning and went to buy groceries. Jie Huan also finished cooking the set meal, and then was busy making a banquet for her brother. Since the weather was hot, the dining table was set directly in the courtyard and 2 lanterns were lit, which was quite bright. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 220. Chapter 220. Rich people, let's be brothers. Among the classmates invited by Grn, 2 are the nephews of the companions that Mr. Wen brought to the valley that day. They are of good character and not arrogant. The other 3 are from similar family backgrounds to the Li family, but they are generous and study hard. The student celebrating his birthday today is a little fat guy. He is usually gluttonous, and he is very cheerful and kind-hearted. Even if he secretly eats some dried meat in the middle of the night, he will also give Grn a handful. The 2 of them get along very well. That's why Grn thought of asking his brother to cook and give him a birthday banquet. The little fat man was so happy. He liked this dish and that dish was delicious. Finally, he asked the honest family friend where he learned the craftsmanship. He wished he could send the cook from home to learn the craftsmanship. Everyone was well fed, joking with the fat man, and clamoring to ask Grn to take precautions, because the fat man wanted to steal his lesson at noon. At this time, Li Lao-san came over with a cold melon in his arms and said with a smile, "Grn, these are the cold melons from our field. I sent 3 of them here in the afternoon. You cut one and taste it with the gentleman. The remaining 2 will be brought to the gentleman in the courtyard tomorrow." "Oh, are our cold melons ripe?" Grn was happy and quickly thanked his third uncle, then called on his classmates to cut the cold melons together. The students were curious and gathered around to look at the big guy. Suddenly the little fat man shouted, "Oh, I know. My dad came over the day before yesterday and said he wanted to buy me a jade melon as a birthday gift, but he didn't buy it." "No way. Is this it?" Li Lao-san puffed up his chest proudly and said with a smile, "This is it. When I presented it to the emperor named it jade melon." The students were furious. "Is this the cold melon named after the emperor? It's so expensive, isn't it a pity for us to eat it? I heard that this thing costs 10 taels of silver each." "No way, one mouthful will cost dozens of dollars, it's too luxurious." Grn didn't know what to do with the kitchen knife, so he asked his younger brother for help. Jia Huan is very quick and can cut it with just a few knives. Grn first took 2 pieces and gave them to his uncle and aunt, and then invited his classmates to eat. The students also bowed and thanked them, and then ate. "Woo, this is so delicious." The little fat man hugged the largest piece of cold melon and was so moved that he almost cried. "Grn, do you still lack a son in your family? I want to be your brother, and I want to lie down in the fields. We eat cold melon every day." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. "Be careful, your father will hear you and spank your ass. Then let my dad plant a few acres, and I'll lie down in my field and eat it." The little fat man thought of his dad's big slap with a cattail leaf fan, and quickly changed his tune, making everyone laugh. Jia Huan rarely interrupted. "Someone at home said that whoever wants to grow cold melons can be taught by our family. Next year, many people in nearby villages will follow suit." Little Fatty was originally a joke, but he didn't expect that the Li family really wanted to spread the news. He was so surprised that he forgot to spit out the seeds. "Your family is so generous, you are willing to give away such a cornucopia." The other classmates also nodded. "There is no need to grow more cold melons, which cost 10 taels of silver each. Planting a few acres of land a year can yield tens of thousands of taels of silver. It is easier than robbing money. They actually taught me this way." Jia smiled and nodded. "If my family says so, it must be right." The little fat man quickly collected all the melon seeds and kept them in front of him. "Don't them from me, these melon seeds are all mine." "No, it's mine, mine. There's me, I want it too." The students pretended to fight for it and made a fuss. Finally, they gave it to the little fat man and made an appointment to eat cold melon at his house next year. The backyard of the small shop was so lively because these students came as guests that it almost overturned the roof of the house. Li and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Li, were sitting under the eaves, waving cattail leaf fans, smiling and watching their play, thinking that one day they would talk to my mother when she got home, so that she would be happy too. My nephew has finally established himself in the academy, so the family does not have to worry too much. After lunch on the second day, Grn took Jiawen and each of them carried the cold melon into the academy. Go Shenger wanted to help, but he was too young and had no strength. A cold melon weighed 20 pounds and couldn't be carried at all. Grn went to the dean's yard first, but unfortunately he had not seen the dean and could not go in. He only gave the cold melon to the old servant guarding the yard. The old servant stared in shock and looked at Grn carefully. "A few days ago, a disciple of the dean specially sent one over. I heard it was very valuable." But at this moment, an ordinary student actually held a cold melon to show his respect, which surprised him. He specifically asked Grn's name before accepting it. Grn didn't think much about it and took his younger brother to the coach's yard again. The gentleman in charge of teaching Jiaran's class is named Peng. He is a middle-aged man who is knowledgeable and interesting. Because he is acquainted with Mr. Wen, he takes good care of Jiaran. Now that I got cold melon, Mr. Peng was of course also happy and asked Jiaran to talk a few more words. Jie Huan feels uncomfortable in the house, so he waits in the yard. There was a pond of koi in the corner of the yard. It was swimming happily. He couldn't help but go to check it out, gesticulating with his hands. A girl watched from a distance for a while, then walked up and asked, "What are you doing, practicing martial arts?" Jie Huan was startled. He turned around and saw a pretty little girl. He blushed and said quickly, "I don't know how to do martial arts. I'm a cook." When I saw these fish, I couldn't help but think about how to cut them and pickle them easier to taste. The girl was stunned for a moment, then giggled loudly, and Jie Huan's face became even redder. Jiaran said goodbye to his husband and came out. He didn't see his brother, so he shouted a few words. Jie Huan quickly walked out of the corner of the courtyard and said, "Brother, I'm here. Why is your face so red? Are you exposed to the sun?" Jiaran touched his brother's head and pulled him out. "Go home, wash your face, and have a good rest." "I know, brother," Jie Huan responded and followed his eldest brother out of the courtyard. He couldn't help but look at the corner of the courtyard secretly. Although the mountain forests in summer are much more dangerous than those in winter, they are extremely cool due to the shade of trees and no exposure to the scorching sun. Li Laosi and Yeshan, along with Ji Yi and Lu Yang, as well as 20 soldiers assigned by Mr. Ye, have been in the mountain for 8 or 9 days. There were no old or weak people, no extra luggage, and they were traveling very fast. Li Laosi roasted the rabbit in his hand with one hand, and used the other hand to swat mosquitoes, and said to everyone, "We will arrive at the valley at noon tomorrow. It is only 2 hills away from the official road outside. Then we will repair it, have a good rest, and then go find out what is going on outside. If we can catch 2 barbarians, ask their background is even better." Yashin and the soldiers all nodded. They originally thought that Li Laosi and the 2.5 young men would be a bit of a drag. Who would have thought that these 3 people were as at home in the mountains and forests as they were at home? As expected, no one can underestimate it. That night, everyone took turns to keep vigil, and finally set off immediately after dawn. The valley where the Li family and villagers spent the winter was not on the central line running through the mountain forest from north to south. It was slightly to the east, so it was not easy to be discovered. And it's very close to the official road. People who usually go into the mountains and forests do so to avoid being chased by barbarians, so they will definitely stay away from here. So, Li Laosi was not very worried about the valley being discovered. But when they finally arrived, they were all stunned by what they saw. 6,000 words in the third update. Here you go. End of this chapter.